The alien stared, unblinking, its many eyes reflecting the cold void of space. It had seen countless species, all obedient, all predictable. Yet here was a human, smiling, leaning against the console of a ship that should have been dead, fingers tapping lightly as if the universe itself were a personal joke. Why was the human smiling? That question rippled through the alien fleet, a silent tremor of confusion. They said it was impossible, the human muttered, almost to themselves, voice barely audible over the hum of the engines. They said the signals would never reach beyond the edge, and yet, a soft laugh, quiet but defiant, here we are. Across the galaxy, signals crackled like whispers in a storm. A pattern emerged, one that no sensor arrays had ever recorded, one that the alien minds could not decode. It was a summoning, a call to a fleet that had earned a name in fear. And now that fleet was moving, drawn by a signal only humans could understand, a rhythm only they could set. Inside the bridge, the human's eyes flicked to a flickering hologram. Numbers, coordinates, probabilities, death and chaos stretched across each line like a living map. Yet there was no fear in their gaze. There was certainty. Stubborn, foolish, beautiful certainty. The aliens watched from orbit, whispering among themselves, their own thoughts entwined with disbelief. How could a species so fragile, so soft, summon a storm they could not hope to survive? And yet it happened. Every sensor, every scanner, every projection, wrong. Humans never followed logic. Humans never yielded. On the human ship, silence was a companion, but it was a comfortable one. Every creak of metal, every distant vibration through the hull felt like an old friend. The crew, human, tired, worn from decades of war and travel, moved with precision that betrayed years of training. But even in the smallest gestures there was humor, an inside joke, a shared glance, a smirk at absurdity that no alien could comprehend. Fear might dominate an alien heart. Humans, they danced in its shadow. Approaching the boundary, the human said, voice low but clear. Their hand hovered over the console, indecision flashing for a heartbeat, and then gone. Courage is never without doubt, but the human did not falter. Engage the beacon, let them see us coming. A tremor ran through the alien fleet as the signal hit full power. Screens flickered, coordinates blinked, warnings screamed. And yet nothing stopped the ships from moving, slow at first then faster, relentless. They obeyed their human summons without question, as if pulled by gravity itself. The aliens recoiled. Their minds, so vast and alien, could not compute the force of determination they faced. Not technology, not firepower, determination. The human trait that had carved deserts, crossed oceans, and survived worlds others could not imagine. Inside the ship, the human's thoughts drifted. Memories of home, laughter, loss. A quiet question that lingered at the edges of every mission. What does it mean to survive, truly survive, against a universe that seems determined to erase you? And still they pressed forward, against odds, against reason, against the fear that whispered in the dark. Outside, stars streaked past. The void felt vast, infinite, unconcerned. And yet in that infinite darkness, a human hand pressed a button and the impossible began to move. A fleet older than some civilizations, feared by all, crossing boundaries it had no right to cross. The galaxy was holding its breath. And the humans smiled. Not because they believed in victory, not because they were naive, but because in that fleeting, fragile moment they felt alive. Defiance was a language they spoke fluently, and hope was a weapon sharper than any blade. The aliens would remember this day. They would speak of it in fear, in awe, in disbelief. The human who smiled, the signal that summoned death, and the world or worlds that trembled at a species that refused to bow, refused to hide, refused to accept the rules of the universe as they were written. Because humans wrote their own rules. They told the humans they would break, that no species could stand against the cold, indifferent weight of the universe and live to tell the tale. Yet here they were. The human fingers danced across the console, adjusting vectors, recalibrating shields, running maneuvers that seemed reckless to any outsider. But reckless was a word humans rarely feared. The aliens watched from above, their collective voices vibrating with unease. How could a single signal, faint and wavering, command the allegiance of ships built to die? How could flesh, fragile and imperfect, bend the mechanics of war to their will? They had never encountered a force like this, not in billions of cycles. And the more they watched, the more a single truth emerged. Humans did not fight with logic alone, they fought with something the aliens could not name. Hope, stubborn, relentless hope. Inside the ship, a human laughed. It was a soft sound, half disbelief, half triumph. The crew glanced at each other, eyes bright, hearts steady. One of them muttered a word that sounded like prayer, though it wasn't directed to any god. It was a prayer to possibility. We might just pull this off. They were not invincible. They were not perfect. They were human. And humans, the aliens had learned, could survive impossible things, not because they were stronger, not because they were smarter, but because they refused to surrender to despair. A sudden tremor shook the ship. Warning lights flared. An alien scout had caught sight of them, transmitting its panic back to the fleet. The humans moved as one, a blend of instinct and training, every motion precise yet chaotic in a way that confused the alien observers. The scout fired. Missiles streaked through space like molten veins of fire. The humans' eyes narrowed. "Dodge," they whispered. It wasn't an order, it was a promise, and with a twist of the thrusters, a jolt of ingenuity, the ship shifted just enough. The missiles passed harmlessly. One of the crew laughed, a bark of disbelief. "You kidding me? That was close." Fear would have paralyzed the aliens. Humiliation might have stopped them, but humans thrived in that moment. Humor under pressure, the ability to find light in the dark, they understood it as instinct, as survival. The fleet followed the signal, growing bolder, moving faster. And with every light year crossed, the human reflected on the cost of what they were doing. Friends lost, planets sacrificed. Time, the most precious resource of all, slipping through their fingers, yet they did not hesitate. Because courage, the kind that mattered, was never absence of fear. It was the decision to act despite it. A low hum filled the bridge. Communication channels flickered, voices of the fleet, other humans joining in, harmonizing into a single, unstoppable song. They had heard the call, they had felt it deep in their bones, and they answered. The aliens recoiled. Their calculations failed. Predictions collapsed. Patterns the galaxy had held sacred, the inevitability of certain species' destruction, crumbled like dust before an unyielding wind. How could such fragile beings summon death itself to follow them? The humans' thoughts wandered again. A quiet longing, a memory of skies streaked with sunset, oceans that laughed in waves, the small, enduring comforts that made existence worth it. And yet none of that could anchor them here. There was no choice but forward. No safety but in defiance. One of the crew glanced at the human. "Do you think they know what's coming?" The human's smile was faint, weary. "They'll learn soon enough, and maybe they'll finally understand why we never quit." The alien fleet surged forward, sensing inevitability but unable to alter it. Ships that had once been whispered about as monsters obeyed a human summons, cutting across territories, crossing lines no species dared touch. Each light year was a heartbeat, each jump through space a declaration. Humans do not yield. Humans do not kneel. And in the quiet moments between engines, the human wondered not about victory, not about survival, but about the price of being human. To feel, to hope, to laugh, to fear, to hurt, and still rise. The galaxy would remember them. The aliens would remember them, even if they did not yet understand. Because in that infinite void, a simple truth shone brighter than any star. Humans were unpredictable. Humans were unstoppable. And humans would always find a way. What makes a species unstoppable? The aliens pondered the question, their minds sprawling across star systems, seeking logic, rules, weakness. And yet here were humans, defying expectation, rewriting the calculus of fear, thriving where every model said they should collapse. They did not fight because they had to. They fought because they would not allow the universe to tell them no. The human leaned over the map console, eyes tracing trajectories that bent space and time in ways that should have been suicidal. "Every choice matters," they whispered almost to themselves, almost as if speaking to the void itself. "One wrong move, one hesitation." Their hand hovered for a heartbeat, trembling not with fear but with awareness. Life was precious, fragile, fleeting, and yet they pressed forward. The alien fleet tightened, a looming shadow across the stars. Their signals crackled, urgent and sharp, trying to warn their brethren, trying to impose order. Humans, the aliens had decided long ago, were predictable only in their unpredictability. They never acted the way others expected. They never surrendered. A young crew member glanced at the human captain. "Do you think they can even comprehend what we're doing?" The captain's lips curved into a faint, almost playful smile. "Comprehension isn't necessary," they said. "They'll feel it, that's enough." Outside, the void seemed alive. Stars shimmered like distant lanterns, indifferent witnesses to the approaching storm. Yet every pulse of the ship's engines, every flicker of its shields radiated a quiet message. Humans endure. Humans persevere. Humans laugh at impossible odds. A sudden alarm shattered the calm. Sensors detected interference, alien cloaking technology, ghost ships that slipped in and out of perception. Missiles arced silently across the emptiness, engines igniting in bursts meant to surprise and intimidate. The human captain's hand flew across the controls, instincts honed over decades guiding their every motion. "Divert power to the front shields. Evasive pattern Delta 9. The crew moved in perfect synchrony, trained, exhausted, yet relentless. The missiles passed like fireflies in a storm, harmless yet illuminating. A laugh escaped the human captain's throat, not from triumph, but from disbelief at the audacity of what they had survived. The aliens could not fathom it. They had seen countless civilizations crumble under pressure, watch empires collapse from fear, and yet these humans, soft, fragile, mortal, moved through the chaos with grace, humor, and defiance. It was as if their very existence mocked every law the universe had written. In the quiet between battles, the humans' thoughts turned inward. Memories of home, of laughter, of loss. Friends who would never see the end of this campaign. Worlds that would never feel their touch again. The weight of responsibility pressed down like gravity, yet they carried it with the stubborn pride of humanity. Courage was not born from fearlessness. It was born from choosing to act despite fear, choosing hope despite despair. The fleet continued its approach, every jump forward a heartbeat, every maneuver a message written in light and steel. Humans refused to bow. Alien communications tried to predict, to negotiate, to intimidate. But prediction faltered in the face of instinct. Negotiation crumbled against defiance. Intimidation bounced harmlessly off a species that had survived worse and returned stronger. A nudged the captain, voice quiet, tense. "Do you ever wonder why they keep coming?" The human looked out the viewport, the stars a blur of motion, the void trembling with anticipation. "Because," they said, "they've never met anyone like us before, and they're about to learn the hard way." The signal that had called the fleet rippled through space, an invisible hand drawing monsters across light years. The aliens sensed it, felt the inevitability of it, and recoiled in confusion. How could something so small, so human, command such obedience from a force meant to terrify civilizations? Yet for the humans, this was no display of power. It was necessity. It was survival. It was the assertion that the universe would not define them. Every pulse of the engines, every spark of energy across the ship's hull, every whispered command was a testament to the human spirit, imperfect, fragile, and yet unbreakable. And in that vast emptiness, a simple truth echoed louder than any fleet or weapon. Humans were not predictable. Humans did not yield. Humans did not exist merely to endure. They existed to define what it meant to live, to laugh, to fight, to hope, and to inspire even the coldest, most logical minds to question everything they had ever believed. The aliens would learn this lesson soon. The galaxy would remember it. And the humans would continue forward because retreat was not in their nature, and defiance was the only language they truly understood. The stars stretched endlessly, indifferent witnesses to the unfolding storm. The alien fleet sensed it now, not just a human ship, but an entire philosophy crossing their borders, a force they could not hope to contain. Calculations collapsed, predictions shattered, and the word impossible echoed like a cruel joke in their collective minds. Inside the human ship, the captain leaned over the holographic map, eyes scanning vectors, trajectories, and probabilities. "They'll try to stop us," they murmured almost to themselves. "And that's fine, we'll just keep going." A hand hovered over the controls, hesitating for a heartbeat, not from fear but from the awareness that every choice mattered. One misstep could cost them everything. A young crew member looked up, voice trembling but determined. "Do you really think we can make it through?" The captain's eyes softened, a glimmer of warmth amid the tension. "It's not about thinking," they said. It's about doing. That's what humans do. That's why we survive. Outside, the first alien patrols met the approaching fleet. Ships, sleek and deadly, glinted like knives in the void. They fired, energy streaking across space, trying to halt what should have been unstoppable. The humans dodged, weaved, and countered, their movements precise but infused with an instinct no algorithm could predict. The aliens recoiled at every maneuver. Their systems screamed in alarm. Probability models crumbled as missiles missed by fractions of an inch, shields held against odds that reason. The human crew laughed, shouted, and swore under their breath, embracing the chaos as if it were a dance they had known all their lives. "Adjust power to aft thrusters," the captain barked. "Evasive pattern Gamma 3 now." The ship twisted, flipped, and darted through the barrage. The alien patrols faltered, their confidence unraveling. Humans were not supposed to move like this. Humans were supposed to break, to fear, to obey, and yet here they were. Amid the chaos, quiet moments persisted. The captain's gaze drifted to the viewport where distant stars blurred into streaks of light. Memories surged. Home, friends lost, victories earned and forgotten, sacrifices made without recognition. And yet the humans smiled, not for triumph, not for glory, but because in the face of annihilation they still had the audacity to hope. The fleet advanced, drawn by the signal, unyielding and relentless. Each ship a heartbeat of defiance, each jump across light years a message to the galaxy. Humans do not submit. Humans do not negotiate. Humans do not retreat. An alien commander attempted communication, voice harsh, filled with authority. "Turn back. You cannot survive this. You are insignificant. You are—" The transmission cut abruptly. A missile streaked past, harmless but intentional, a warning wrapped in audacity. The human captain smirked, fingers tapping the console. "They'll have to try harder than that." Inside the crew, tension mingled with exhilaration. Fear was present, yes, but it was a companion, not a master. They had survived worse. They had crossed deserts, oceans, and worlds that would have broken lesser species. And now they faced a threat unlike any other. And yet, humor, stubbornness, courage, they had not abandoned them. The aliens, watching from their sensors, began to whisper among themselves. Reports conflicted. Models failed. Protocols were meaningless. And one thing became terrifyingly clear. Humans were not constrained by fear. Humans were not bound by rules. Humans were driven by a force the galaxy could not comprehend. Unyielding will, stubborn hope, and the audacity to confront annihilation with a smile. A young pilot leaned over the console, voice low but determined. "Captain, are we really going to make it?" The human smiled faintly, eyes gleaming with quiet fire. "We're already making it," they said. "They just don't know it yet." The fleet surged through the boundary, crossing into alien-controlled space, leaving calculations, predictions, and expectations behind. The galaxy seemed to shiver, sensing the arrival of a force it had feared but never understood. And through it all, the humans moved forward, undaunted, unbroken, unforgettable. And in the quiet that followed, the captain's voice resonated softly over the comms. "They'll remember us, not for the ships we brought or the firepower we wielded, but for the fact that we refused to kneel, that we dared, that we survived, because that is what it means to be human." The aliens would learn soon enough. And the humans would keep moving forward, not because they had to, but because defiance, hope, and courage were stitched into their very essence. The void trembled as the fleet advanced, crossing into territory no human had any right to enter. The aliens had predicted hesitation, retreat, failure. Instead, they were met with certainty. A certainty that humans wore like armor, forged from centuries of surviving impossible odds, from living in worlds that should have crushed them beneath their weight. The human captain stood at the helm, eyes scanning the incoming alien formations. "They're ready," they murmured, not with fear, not with arrogance, but with acknowledgement. "And so are we." The first volleys came. Energy flares, missiles, plasma streams, the kind of devastation that should have obliterated any fragile vessel. But the humans moved differently. They danced in the chaos, weaving through death with precision and audacity. Every maneuver, every flick of a control was a declaration. We are not afraid. A young gunner shouted, voice tight with tension and excitement. "They're everywhere. How are we still?" The captain cut them off with a single word, calm and resolute. "Adapt." Humans always adapted. They had done it on planets where the air burned like acid, on oceans that swallowed cities, on deserts that cracked skin and mind alike. And now, in the cold vacuum of space, they adapted again, finding solutions no alien could anticipate, exploiting weaknesses that calculations had overlooked. The aliens recoiled, unable to comprehend the instinct that drove every human action. They fired again, more aggressively, attempting to predict, to corral, to crush. And yet each attack failed, each strike met with impossible timing and ingenuity. Humans were chaos embodied, but it was chaos with purpose, chaos with heart, chaos that smiled in the face of annihilation. On the bridge, silence fell briefly, a calm between storms. The captain's gaze drifted outward past the flashing lights of the enemy fleet, past the streaking missiles to the distant stars. Memories flickered of home, of laughter, of loss. And then a quiet thought: every choice matters, every life matters, every moment counts. The crew moved as one, not because they were ordered to, but because they were human. Loyalty, courage, and defiance were etched into their very being. Even in the face of overwhelming odds, they worked in harmony, each small act a testament to the resilience of a species the galaxy could neither predict nor contain. An alien dread spread through their ranks. Calculations failed. Models crumbled. Predictions proved worthless. Every time they thought they had the humans cornered, the humans slipped free, not by strength alone, but by audacity, by stubbornness, by the refusal to submit. A pilot's voice rang over the comms, sharp, exhilarated. "Captain, they don't understand. They can't predict us." The captain smiled faintly, tired but resolute. "Good. Let them learn the hard way." The first collision of fleets erupted like a storm. Explosions lit the void in eerie bursts of color, fires blossoming where alien ships met human ingenuity. And amid the chaos, humans continued to laugh, to shout, to curse and joke, finding light in the darkness that no alien could fathom. Even when injuries struck, even when friends fell, the humans pressed on. Sacrifice was not a burden, it was a choice. Courage was not the absence of fear, it was the decision to act despite it. And hope was a weapon sharper than any missile or blade, a force the aliens could neither calculate nor resist. The fleet surged forward, drawn by the original signal, relentless and unyielding. Every jump, every maneuver was a heartbeat of defiance, a message to the galaxy. Humans do not kneel. Humans do not surrender. Humans survive. And sometimes that survival is more powerful than destruction itself. A quiet murmur spread across the bridge. The captain's gaze softened, reflective. "We fight," they said almost to themselves, "not because we have to, but because we remember who we are. And the universe will remember us for it." The aliens would feel it, they would fear it, they would never understand it, and yet they could not stop it. The humans moved forward, unstoppable, unpredictable, alive in a way that comprehension. And in the endless void, amid destruction and stars, one undeniable truth shone brighter than any weapon. Humans were not just surviving. They were defining what it meant to exist in the face of the impossible. Because humans refused to die quietly. The void was alive with fire and motion, but inside the human ship a quiet persisted, a heartbeat between chaos. The captain leaned back slightly, eyes tracing the star-streaked horizon, letting the chaos rage around them. "They think fear will stop us," they murmured almost to themselves. "They're wrong. Fear only sharpens us." A bruised and tired looked up from the console. "Do you ever wonder if we're too far?" The captain's gaze softened, faint smile touching lips weathered by battles past. "Too far, perhaps, but that's never been a reason to turn back." Outside, the fleet surged forward. Ships that had once terrorized the galaxy faltered at every human maneuver. Calculations crumbled, predictions collapsed, strategies failed. And every failure fed a quiet, terrifying realization among the aliens. Humans could not be intimidated. Humans did not bend. The captain's fingers hovered over the controls, hesitation only for a heartbeat, awareness of every life on board pressing down like gravity. Yet courage is not born from absence of fear. It is forged in the presence of it. And humans had been forging courage since the dawn of their species, facing extinction after extinction, each time rising stronger, defiant, unbroken. The first of the alien assault waves collided with the fleet's defensive perimeter. Explosions blossomed like violent stars, missiles streaked past in streaks of color and heat, and yet humans moved as one. Every dodged strike, every counterattack was a testament not just to training, but to instinct. They thrived in chaos, laughed in its face, turned despair into fuel. A young gunner shouted, voice raw with adrenaline, "They're hitting harder than ever." The captain's reply was calm, unwavering. "Good, let them try. Every strike is a lesson, and we learn faster than they can predict." The aliens whispered in disbelief across their fleet. How could a species so fragile endure, adapt, and fight with a defiance that made even the most advanced calculations meaningless? Their weapons were precise, their tactics flawless, and yet humans moved like water, flowing, slipping, finding gaps, exploiting weaknesses, surviving where survival seemed impossible. The captain's mind wandered briefly, as it always did before the storms of battle. Memories of home, of laughter, of friends lost and planets burned. Yet no regret lingered long. Regret was wasted energy. Action, courage, hope, these were human traits that the galaxy had consistently underestimated, and here they were, alive, laughing, fighting, unstoppable. A sudden shock rattled the ship. A missile grazed the hull, sending a tremor through the deck. Alarms screamed. The crew scrambled, each movement a dance of life and death. The captain barked orders, voice steady. "Reinforce the shields, evasive maneuvers, Gammaphore, keep moving." And with every command, humans survived, humans endured, humans became a living testament to defiance. The alien fleet faltered again. Their confidence, once absolute, was eroding. Every failure, every miscalculation, every moment spent trying to predict the humans only widened the gulf of uncertainty. They could destroy ships, yes. They could obliterate worlds, yes. But they could not destroy the human spirit. That was invisible, unquantifiable, unstoppable. In the midst of chaos, the captain's voice softened, almost a whisper over the comms. "Remember who we are, remember why we fight, and no matter what happens, we do not yield. That is human. That is what makes us human." And in the vast emptiness, amid explosions, streaking missiles, and the hum of engines, the aliens began to understand the most terrifying truth of all. Humans did not fight for power. Humans fought because they refused to be erased. Humans fought because hope, courage, stubbornness, and laughter were stronger than any fleet, sharper than any weapon, fiercer than any prediction. A young engineer glanced at the captain, eyes wide with a mixture of fear and awe. "Do we really stand a chance?" The captain's smile was faint, tired, but unwavering. "We already are," they said. "They just don't know it yet." The fleet surged onward, drawn inexorably by the signal that had called them across light years. Every jump, every maneuver, every act of human ingenuity whispered across the void a simple, undeniable truth. Humans do not submit. Humans do not kneel. Humans do not accept limits imposed by others. And somewhere in the stillness between battles, a single thought resonated through the captain's mind, quiet but powerful. The universe may try to define us, crush us, erase us, but humans define themselves. And nothing, not fear, not death, not the impossible, can ever take that away. The void pulsed with energy, a battlefield stretching across light years. The alien fleet, once confident in their inevitability, now faltered with every human maneuver. Predictions failed, tactics collapsed. Fear, something they had never expected, slipped into their collective consciousness. And humans thrived in it. The captain stood at the helm, shoulders tense but eyes steady, scanning the alien formations. "They think this will scare us," they murmured, voice calm yet edged with fire. "They're wrong. Fear doesn't break humans, it sharpens them." A young crew member glanced at the captain, voice quivering. "We've lost ships, some of our best." The captain's gaze softened, acknowledging the weight of the truth. "Yes," they said quietly, "and every loss reminds us why we fight. Every friend, every ship, it matters, but quitting isn't an option." The first wave of alien reinforcements struck. Explosions lit the void, hulls cracked, missiles streaked through space like molten fire. But the humans moved differently. They did not panic. They did not retreat. Each maneuver was precise, instinctive, and audacious. Every dodge, every counterattack was a declaration: we endure. A gunner shouted over the alarms, voice raw with adrenaline. "They're everywhere. How do we even?" The captain cut them off with a single word, calm and commanding. Adapt. Humans had survived impossible worlds, oceans that swallowed cities, deserts that cracked the earth and the spirit alike. And now, in the cold vacuum of space, they adapted again. The aliens could calculate damage, predict strikes, anticipate strategy, but they could not predict audacity, courage, humor under fire, stubbornness, hope. The fleet surged forward, unrelenting, drawn by the human signal. Every jump, every maneuver, every strike was a heartbeat of defiance, a message that humans did not bow, did not kneel, did not accept limits imposed by others. A young engineer spoke, voice low, awed. "Do you think we can make it?" The captain smiled faintly, exhaustion and determination intertwined. "We've already made it," they said. "They just don't know it yet." The alien fleet launched a coordinated assault, overwhelming in scale, ferocious in precision. Explosions bloomed like deadly flowers across the void. Ships burned, debris scattered. The humans lost friends, allies, ships, but not courage. They laughed, they shouted, they cursed, and they adapted. Every loss became fuel, every hit a lesson. The captain's hand hovered over the controls, eyes narrowing. "Evasive pattern Delta 7, shields to maximum, focus fire on the lead ship." The crew moved in perfect synchrony, their instincts and training merging into one living entity. And as missiles passed harmlessly by, the aliens recoiled, calculating, recalculating, failing. Somewhere amid the chaos, the captain allowed a brief moment of reflection. Memories flickered, home, laughter, loved ones lost, friends sacrificed. And yet there was no regret. Regret was wasted energy. Courage, hope, loyalty, stubbornness, these were human traits the galaxy could never erase. The aliens began to understand, too late, the terrifying truth. Humans do not fight for conquest, for domination, for glory. Humans fight because they refuse to be erased. Because hope, stubbornness, laughter, courage, they are stronger than fleets, sharper than weapons, fiercer than any prediction. The ships surged through alien space, drawn by the signal that no one else could hear, responding to a call only humans understood. Every light year was a heartbeat of defiance. Every maneuver a testament to the stubborn brilliance of a species the galaxy had underestimated for too long. A crew member, battered and weary, looked at the captain. "Will we survive this?" The captain's eyes, fierce and tender, met theirs. "We don't survive by chance. We survive by refusing to give up. That's what it means to be human." And as the void trembled with fire and chaos, the aliens realized the horrifying truth. No weapon, no fleet, no calculation could ever destroy the human spirit. Humans endured because endurance was in their blood. Humans fought because defiance was their nature. Humans lived because life itself was a victory. Somewhere in the quiet moments between explosions, the captain whispered to themselves, softly but with certainty, "The universe may try to define us, to erase us, to crush us, but humans define themselves. And nothing, not fear, not death, not the impossible, can ever take that away." The fleet moved onward, unstoppable, unpredictable, unyielding. And through it all, one undeniable truth spread across the stars. Humans were alive. Humans were unbroken. Humans were unstoppable. The void held its breath. Every star, every fragment of debris, every pulse of energy seemed to pause as the fleet and the humans converged at last. The aliens had expected submission, chaos, fear. What they found was something else entirely, defiance. Unyielding, radiant, human defiance. The captain stood at the helm, hands steady on the console, eyes scanning the battlefield that stretched across light years. The crew, battered, weary, and moved with the precision of a species that had endured impossible odds. And yet, even in the heart of battle, humor lingered, laughter flared briefly, smiles passed in fleeting glances. The aliens could not understand it. Humans thrived in the impossible, and sometimes they even celebrated it. "They told us we couldn't come this far," the captain whispered, voice quiet but fierce almost to themselves. "They said it was impossible, and yet," their lips curved into a faint, tired smile, "here we are." Explosions bloomed like deadly flowers, missiles arcing through the void like molten lightning. Alien ships faltered under maneuvers no calculation had predicted. Every dodge, every counter, every clever twist of strategy struck at the heart of impossibility. Humans did not merely survive, they inspired. They forced the universe itself to acknowledge that a species so fragile, so mortal, could still bend reality with courage, wit, and stubborn hope. A young crew member glanced at the captain, voice raw with emotion. "Are we really doing it?" The captain's eyes softened, fierce and tender. "We already are," they said. "They just don't know it yet." The fleet advanced relentlessly, drawn by the original signal. Ships older than civilizations, feared by countless species, now answered a human summons, crossing lines no one dared breach. And every human aboard every ship carried with them a single truth. Retreat was not an option. Defiance was the only language they understood. Somewhere amid the chaos, a human pilot laughed, a short, breathless sound of exhilaration and disbelief. "They really thought they could stop us," the captain nodded, voice low, fierce, and certain. "Let them learn, let the galaxy learn. Humans do not bow, humans do not kneel, humans survive." Losses mounted, friends fell, ships burned. Yet the humans pressed on not because they were invincible, but because courage is never absence of fear, it is action in spite of it. Sacrifice became their strength, hope became their weapon, and stubbornness became their shield. The aliens, observing, recoiled. They had never seen such resolve. Logic failed them, predictions collapsed, and even their terror could not contain it. Humans were alive in a way that understanding. Humans endured in a way that demanded respect. Humans would not be erased. The captain's voice softened, almost a whisper, carrying across comms and heart alike. "We fight because we must, yes, but more than that, we fight because we refuse to accept a universe that says we cannot. Every star, every world, every life lost is proof that we exist, and we define what it means to live. That is human. That is why we endure." The fleet surged to its limit, but even it could not match the audacity of the human spirit. Ships darted and twisted, formations shifted with instinct no machine could anticipate, and slowly, imperceptibly at first, the tide began to turn. Humans were not only surviving, they were shaping the outcome, bending the chaos toward life, toward hope, toward defiance. The alien fleet faltered. Panic whispered across their comms, calculations failed. And as the humans pressed forward, they left a single, undeniable truth in their wake. This was more than survival. This was a testament, a message to every species, every corner of the galaxy, every impossible force that had ever whispered, "You cannot endure." Humans endured, humans fought, humans laughed, humans loved, humans sacrificed, humans survived. And in doing so, they had changed the universe, not with domination, not with fire, not with conquest, but with the one thing aliens could never conquer, spirit. The captain leaned back, gaze sweeping across the stars and the battle that raged like a storm. "We've come farther than anyone thought possible," they whispered. "Not because we're stronger, not because we're smarter, because we refuse to give up, because we fight with hope, courage, stubbornness, and because we are human." And in the silent void after the storm, one truth echoed across the galaxy, carried on every pulse of light and hum of engines, across every system, every planet, every mind that had borne witness. Humans do not bow, humans do not break, humans endure, and nothing, not fear, not death, not the impossible, can ever take that away. The stars seemed to shimmer a little brighter that day. The void, infinite and cold, had been touched by something uncontainable, unstoppable, undeniable. Humanity. And the universe would never forget.